Then I can go back with the edit pattern tool, move them, hold D, and I'll have more space to move. I don't need to go past that little curvature area right there, so I can move, right click, and take off 0.25. I'll take off a 1/4 inch from there, and I'm going to do the same thing from this side. Start moving, hold D down, take off 0.25, and I'll do a little bit at a time until I feel like enough of the excess has been pinched out. I'm going to go a tiny bit more, grabbing my point, holding D and Control Shift depending on my movement, right clicking and typing in 0.25. I'm going to put back one of those little quarters. So I'm happy with what I see here. Now I want to just like true up my armhole a little bit more. So if you want to move this dart out, I would recommend moving these one at a time. So here I can hold Control, start moving, right click, and extend this out 0.375. Maybe I'll go a little bit more. I'm going to do a whole 1/2 inch and do the same thing over here. So the dart shape stays exactly the same and it's just continuing outward. You should know how to reshape your armhole by just using regular curve points and moving them around. But I'm going to show you a different option for reshaping your armhole using the 3D pen garment tool. When you select it, you can hide the avatar if you like while you're doing this. If her arm is in the way, you can lift them up with joints. I'm not going to explain that here, but I'm okay to go in with the 3D pen tool and visually draw out the adjustment that I would like to have happen on my garment. You click to start and hold Control as you're clicking to move to generate curve points. When you draw this marking, it's not initially an internal line or any type of line you can touch in your 3D window. It's its own type of line called a 3D pen. But if you switch to the Edit 3D pen, you can right click here and choose Convert or Trace to Internal Shape. I'm going to choose Convert because Convert immediately deletes the pen mark but transfers it to be an internal line on my pattern. If you choose the Trace option, it just leaves the pen mark behind. That's the only difference. But now I can use Replace as Pattern Outline to swap that new edge. And on the back, I'm going to show you a different little tip with this tool. So I'm going to go and draw on my garment on the back armhole area in the 3D window. And then I'm going to go through the same action to convert it to an internal shape. I want to clean this little transition up here. So if you try and use the option for Replace as Pattern Outline, when the internal line kind of just intersects the pattern edge, but it doesn't meet a corner. Here it does intersect and overlap, but there's no point there that it's hitting. So when you try to use this option, it will give you an error message and it can't do this. But if instead you right click on that end and you extend, trim, and add point, so it just broke the pattern edge into two parts. There's a point under there and it hits that point. I'm going to select this, extend, trim, and add point. So it just broke the pattern. Now this function will work. So there are a couple ways that you can fix your armhole aside from just moving points around in the 2D window. So I'm on the Edit Curve Point tool, and when I did that action called retract, it added a very large amount of curve points that is more than I need. If you use the Edit Curve Point tool, you can right-click on a segment area. You're not clicking on a point to get this option, but right-click on the segment, and you'll find Optimize All Curve Points. That is going to simplify the amount of curve points on there, but keep the shape. It also applies it to every single pattern at once when you do this. So even though you may do this on the back neckline, every area that can be simplified will be. Now it's time to draft our sleeve. To draft my sleeve, I need the following 3 measurements in mind before I start drafting. The first is my total sleeve length, my bicep circumference, and my cap height. To figure out what these measurements are, I'm going to turn Show Avatar Measurements back on, select Edit Measurement, and then select that line around the bicep. And it's going to show me that her bicep is just over 12 inches. I'm going to make the bicep of the sleeve a bit bigger than 12 inches. But I know I should not be any less than that for sure. The next measurement that I'm going to get is the sleeve length. You can click on this segment and sleeve length is marked. It kind of wraps around the elbow and down to the back of the wrist. You can draw your own straight line measurement with the basic tape measurement. Here's 23 inches. Here's 21.5. You can determine and adjust your sleeve length very easily after it's created, so I'm not too worried about the sleeve length in general. And then the next measurement I'm going to get is the cap height. To get the sleeve cap height, you can measure your armhole circumference and divide that into 3 and start with 1/3 of that measurement as your sleeve cap height. That's a decent formula that I have used and works fine, but I'm going to show you another option that I've used as well. I'm going to select the back shoulder and the front shoulder simultaneously. Then if you right click on the shoulder, you'll find Matchup. Start is where the neckline is, center is the middle of the segments, and then end will be towards my armhole opening. So if I select that, if there's any difference, it's going to show here and not here. They are supposed to be the same length, but right after this, I can true up the neckline. I'm going to grab the internal polygon tool and draw a line from here to here. I'm going to measure the distance from that shoulder point to this line and use this to start my sleeve cap height. So this is 4.761. I'm going to remember that measurement, call it 4 3/4, and then I can delete these markings that I just put down. To rotate the back piece to its rightful position where it was before, I'm going to select Match Up with the side seams of the bodice, choose Match Up to End, and it'll flip that back down. Then I can spread this back out. So now that I have these 3 measurements, I have my bicep width I want to start with, I have a cap height, and I have a sleeve length. My fitted bicep measured 12 inches, but I'm going to start with 15 so I have some ease around my arm. I'm going to get the rectangle tool, left click once in the 2D window with it, and for the width, I'm actually going to work on the half with the bicep. So even though I decided on 15 inches, I'm going to cut this in half and type in 7.5. The height, I can do the total sleeve length of 22 and then hit OK. So I measured 4 3/4 for a cap height. I'm going to round that up to just 5 and make it a little bit taller. From the top edge, I'm going to choose Offset as internal line.